presentation at this time. Ron Montague, the County Ranger here, joins me in the studios of Next Door. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm great. How about you today?
We're doing fantastic. Thanks so much for, I know right now it's a busy time of season. I know with not only being really getting into the tree planting season, but I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about what you do and introduce who you are once again.
Sure. So I'm Ron Montague. I'm the area ranger for Granville and Vance counties with the North Carolina Forest Service. I've been here, I'm working on my 18th year now with the North Carolina Forest Service, and all of it spent in one location here in the area. So the North Carolina Forest Service, our mission is to protect, promote, and manage the forest resources for the citizens of North Carolina. And so last time, Trey, I was with you, we talked a lot about forest protection, fire control, proper burning tips, things like that. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how we assist landowners to manage their forest resources. So the mission, like we talked about North Carolina Forest Service, we're here to help private landowners manage their forest land, and that's what we spend a lot of our time doing. Granville and Vance counties are very heavy to forest management for landowners who are managing their forest resources for timber products, and that's how they justify keeping their land. It's an investment for them, and so part of that investment is harvesting timber. And we can talk a little bit more about that, but part of that to continue to manage and promote those forest resources and making sure we have enough for the future.
Fantastic. Again, Ron Montague right here on Next Door Radio, recorded presentation at this time. And so going into the management side of things, Rob, let's talk about really some of the first steps, really. If you have a plot of land, again, for example, I live on 2 acres full of pine trees that, of course, it is what it is. But what is the first couple steps that really to look into something like this?
So the biggest thing that landowners need to decide about is what are their objectives for their property. So we deal with landowners a lot of times who may have a small to very large acreages. And it's figuring out what you'd like to see from your forest resources. Some people with small areas around their homes, they're really interested in the aesthetics of it. They want to keep their forest resources for shade, for wildlife habitat, for recreation. Then you move on up to your bigger landowners who have 50 to several hundred acres that are actually using their forest resources as an investment. It's a crop, no different than corn, soybeans, tobacco, anything like that. And so it's important that those forest resources are managed and managed properly. Forestry is not a short-term investment. It can take 20 to 40 years to grow a crop to maturity, or even longer in some of the hardwood species that are longer lived. You may be talking 60, 80, 100 years to grow to your final harvest.
Well, again, Ron Montague right here on Next Door. So what are the first couple steps to really look for? I know you talked a little bit about the process of it, but what are the first steps to really, if you want to do something about it?
So the first step would be to decide what you have, along with your objectives of what you'd like to do with your property. It's important to find out what forest resources you have. We're there to assist you in that. There are also private consulting foresters and timber professionals out there that can do that as well. But it's important to understand and know the age, the condition, the species. All those things go into the science of growing trees. So, forestry is no different than any other science. It's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of tree physiology and soils and environment, species composition, density. There are just a lot of different things that go into growing timber and growing it well. And so the first part is deciding or finding out what you have from a resource professional, whether it's us at the state or a private individual, and then coming up with a forest management plan, or basically a roadmap of here's where you are, this is the condition things are in now, take into account your objectives, and move forward from there. And usually forest management plans are they could be for a very short term, meaning it's about a specific practice like thinning, removing some of the smaller weakened trees to allow the better trees to grow, on up to several years forward, looking at final harvest, timber harvest on that stand of trees, and then even further out from that, reforestation, so that you continue to have that piece of land producing quality forest resources. You know, we get a lot of different products from our forest land. You know, we steadily think about the solid lumber products, dimensional lumber, furniture, and then the paper goods, tissue, even diapers. But what we forget a lot about are some of the different things we use every day that have basically something from a tree in them. Everything from toothpaste and medicine, some soft drinks, you know, even down to things such as cinnamon and you know, all those things contain parts out of trees. It's really interesting. If you're interested, there's plenty of stuff on the North Carolina Forestry Association website about goods from the woods. So we use trees for lots of different things. Now, to do that though, we have to continue to make sure we have a steady supply of those forest resources and that they are harvested in a sustainable manner.
I mean, so one, I didn't know that's crazy to me that all those items that you just mentioned comes out of these forestry and come out of the wood areas. That's pretty amazing to me.
That's right, and so a lot of people really don't know until you start looking at it, until somebody educated me on it. I didn't know that we had stuff in our toothpaste that comes from trees. But yes, so the forest resources are very important to our everyday existence and things we do. And so the other side of that is, you know, the old adage, money doesn't grow on trees. Well, actually it does. So a lot of times we think about the things that we consume every day or use every day, but the income from forest management and from harvesting timber is very important to our landowners as well. And while we see a lot of timber harvest going on, and you know, timber harvest is something that strikes people on a visual level, all spectrums of the scale. Timber harvest can be visually unpleasing at times. Doesn't mean they're not done correctly, and that we don't timber harvest are performed correctly, and we like the things we get out of timber. Sometimes that visual shock of trees that have been there for 30, 40 years have been harvested, that can be different for some people at times. But the important thing is that those tracts are regenerated, whether they're naturally regenerated on their own or artificial regeneration, planting trees. Just give it a few years and things look totally different than they did at the time of harvest. But you know, when I talked about the money does grow on trees, we have a lot of landowners that depend on that income just like any other farmer does for their crop. And you know, that comes to the point where if you're putting that in an investment, you have to harvest those trees to recoup that investment.
Wow. Again, Rob Montague right here on, he's the county ranger here for the Granville County area at this time. Also by way of our video stream, brought to you by Aaron's Rent-A-Center here in the Granville County area. So moving forward with somebody having a conversation, and now I want to do kind of one of those little round table kind of cup of coffee conversations here, Rob. When somebody approaches you about it, give me the pitch of, hey, is my trees worth saving? Is my trees worth producing? Give me the pitch, should you say, on what that conversation would be.
Sure. So a lot of times landowners come to us because they just looking for information. And some of that information begins with how large an area you have. Is it economically feasible to manage those trees depending on how big your area is? And then how to go about doing that, whether it's time to look at a timber sale, having a consulting forester or forester professional handle that sale for the landowner, whether the landowner may handle that sale themselves. But so you would look at the volume that you have. You need to know how much your timber is worth. Well, that's kind of a hard thing to do because it's so variable. That's why we will suggest that you get a consulting forester or a resource professional to assist you, the landowner, in selling and marketing their timber. That consulting forester can also help by determining the value of it, because the average person doesn't know what an acre of timber is worth. And it's not, every acre is not the same. There are a lot of things that go into the factors of determining that volume, how straight it is, how the quality of that stand, the density of it, the ease of being able to harvest it, its physical location with proximities to the mills that buy the forest products. And so a lot of things go into determining a timber sale and the value of that timber sale. And as we talked about, it's a long-term investment. So you want to, landowners need to get the most for their timber when they sell it. They also want to make sure and have someone look after their piece of land, that harvest is done well, it's done correctly, the land is left in good order to continue to grow forest resources again, and then continue that cycle on with reforesting that area. Just for some numbers, in Granville and Vance County last year, close to 60 landowners received assistance on regenerating about 3,100 acres of newly planted trees just in the year 2020 in the two counties. So those landowners are putting forth the investment to go forward and have another stand of trees in, with some of the genetic material that we've got, the improved genetics. Some landowners are cutting timber as soon as 20 years, where some of them may choose to hold it for a longer term investment of 35, 40, 45 years.
Wow. So when is the correct time, getting Rob Montague, County Ranger, here on our Local Talk program, when is the right time if you're looking to produce a mass, money-making scheme, should you say? When is the perfect time to be able to start that if you're interested?
So the perfect time to start it is always now. There are a lot of things in forestry that are seasonal. And the season we're in right now is tree planting season. And so because we plant primarily bare root seedlings, a lot of them are grown at our state nursery at Goldsboro. Those bare root seedlings need to go into the ground, be planted sometime between December and around the 1st of April. And that way they can get their roots established and start growing when spring comes on. So that is timely. We don't plant trees in the hot of summer, or we don't recommend landowners to do that. Plus the seedlings aren't available that time either, just because of the nursery cycles and the way they're grown. But the important time to start is to go ahead and get things now. Doesn't mean that you may have to wait. There are really no sharp lines in most of forestry, with the exception of tree planting and things like that have to occur in the dormant season. But it's important to go ahead and where I talked about a forest management plan being like a roadmap, to know where you are. That forest management plan will give you timelines and different tasks that need to be accomplished to meet the goals that you set forth for your property and for your forest resources.
Outstanding. This has been so informational. Thank you, Rob, so much for joining us here on our Local Talk program. Anything else we want to make sure that we let our listeners know about what's going on right now?
Sure. The only other thing is how to get in touch with us. There are a couple of ways. Our website, www.ncforestservice.gov, has great information. There are links to local contacts all across the state to assist you, whether you're right here. If you're local, Granville, Vance County, we're glad to to talk with you, our phone number is 919-693-3154. If you're other parts of the state, there's a contact list off our website. Again, www.ncforestservice.gov to get you in touch with resource professionals in your area.
Outstanding. Rob, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. It's always a pleasure seeing you. I guess I should have started Happy New Year to you. Happy 2021.
Yeah.
Again, this is Local Talk here on Next Door Radio, nextdoorradio.com. He is Rob Montague, the County Ranger here for the Granville County area. Until next time, God bless. You be the difference while somebody smiles today. We'll see you later.